Don't engage alone. We do this together.
We got it! We got it!
New 52 book.
Somebody clip this one.
Welcome to Comics League Movie Night. I am Jared. I am here with Teladia Plays. What is going on, my brother?
Not much, man. Not much. Without one monitor, as I'm stuck with. I'm stuck with one monitor now. I've got one which is out of commission. So that's the case.
Well, I'm glad you're still here. So, because we are talking about Batman Year One, which is, hey, what's up, David? How you doing, my brother? So,
hey, what's up, David?
So we're talking about Batman Year One, which is again another one of those movies. You know what's kind of funny? The movies adapting Frank Miller's books are always the most faithful to the movies. Isn't that kind of funny how that works out?
Yeah, it's like this movie was like a 1-to-1 adaptation from the book.
Yeah, it's like this, Dark Knight Returns, the movies that could connect to it. Yeah, probably one of the best DC animated films ever. Yes, 100% one of the best. And so again, this is adapting the Batman Year One graphic novel by Frank Miller. And it's basically, so what this was primarily like supposed to do was it was supposed to give like an origin story for Batman. That's really the purpose of this. Now, what's interesting about this, it was supposed to be an origin to the Frank Miller Batman. But as it turns out, it was general enough that it's actually taken as the canon origin story, I believe modern origin for just Batman in general. So I'm like, okay, that's cool. And by the way, so you know what I realized when I was watching this? I could have gotten Sam on because he directed this.
Yeah.
But then again, it would have been at 9. But by Sam will be returning to the channel soon. I can't wait for that. But anyway, so the movie starts off. I like how this movie's framed with Batman and Jim Gordon returning to Gotham at the same time. Obviously, Batman isn't Batman yet, but he's Bruce Wayne. They're returning to Gotham at the exact same time because they're both coming back for like their war. And I like how like when you listen to Bruce's inner dialogue, he's talking about it like he's in a war. Like, from up here, it looks like a perfect city, but below you can't see the enemy. And I'm like, yeah. Randy says, too bad we don't get that quality of animation anymore. It's because again, because the budget for this movie was about $3.5 million. It wasn't that much. And again, this goes back to what Sam said. Animated movies don't typically get that level, a high budget, because otherwise they would all look like Spider-Verse, which would be awesome, by the way. I'm going to type that out.
But the thing is with this film was cross-promoted across multiple media. Mm-hmm. So it was cross-promoted like in video games. Like, for example, Batman Arkham, at the time of Batman Arkham City was coming out, there was a promotion for this film, essentially.
Yeah, yeah.
And, I remember that.
Here's the other thing I don't know if you know. Do you know there's a sequel to this?
Yes, there's a sequel to this. Yes.
Yeah. So for those that don't know, this movie came packaged with a short that was Catwoman that takes place after this, where she goes into a strip club. Which you can find it on YouTube. It's not graphic or anything like that. It's just she goes in there because she's hunting for like a diamond. But I liked it. It was really cool. But anyways, this was almost perfect. If only the voice direction had been on the same level. Interesting. So fun fact, do you know who plays Batman?
Who?
Jim Gordon from Gotham.
Yeah, I was going to bring that up. Yeah, sorry.
And Jim Gordon is played by Walter White.
A.K.A. Zordon from Power Rangers.
And Thug Number 1 is played by Bruce Timm. Oh, how fitting. I had to. Yeah, kind of, David. Kind of, David. So basically, what this movie is recounting is so Batman comes back. He's after he's done with his training. He comes back for his mission. And at first, I like how this shows. At first, Batman is just like a dude in a ski mask beating up criminals, and he senses that doesn't work. When like he starts street fighting criminals in the middle of like this shady side of Gotham, he gets his ass kicked, and he's like, "How do I do this?" Then a bat comes flying through the window, and he goes,
"It's like, oh man, that's a sign."
Yeah, he's like, "Okay, father, I shall become a bat." And by the way, so the ring thing, the bell, what that's a reference to is that when Batman comes back, he's bleeding to death, and he's like, "I will only ring this bell if I can find a way to if I can figure out a way to stop Gotham." And by the way, Andrew Medley with the $10 Canadian super chat. I'm not a fan of year one, but I like a few elements. I like the Legend of the Dark Knight version better as Batman's origin from pre-crisis, which I am a fan of in Bronze Age. Hey, fair enough. That's cool, dude. And by the way, thank you for the super chat. Really appreciate it, brother. Catwoman and Sarah Essen's voice actor were both either too passive or too overly emotional. Do you know who voices Sarah Essen, Teladia?
Who?
Bo-Katan from Star Wars. Katie Sackhoff, which I wish Nick were here so he can make a bunch of Bo-Katan puns. But so how about the idea that like he shows up, Jim Gordon shows up, and he learns that like in Gotham the cops are like all corrupt and they're dealing with rampant police corruption, and it's kind of prescient to today a little bit. I felt like, Drew, my number one favorite origin is Batman Year Zero by Scott Snyder. Yep, that's good. And
by the way, we will be covering that on my channel, Batman.
Yep. Yeah, exactly. We had to, because that one's like incredible. We can even start with that because that none of that takes place in the modern day, and it's the origin. So if you want, instead of going straight to Court of Owls, we can just do year one, the 0 year.
Yeah, that's something I'm looking into.
Okay, cool. But anyway, so you have this, and I love where Batman first dresses up as Batman. He still gets his ass kicked, and you get the idea that like Bruce is still like not the Batman that we know he is. This is kind of the Robert Pattinson Batman, if you notice. I was getting major the Batman vibes from this.
Actually, it's more closer to the Batman Begins film.
That too. Well, and it's kind of funny. Both films, Batman Begins and The Batman, adapted this.
Yeah. But Batman Begins did it more closer to Frank Miller's Batman Year One than the Batman did.
Yeah, I would say so, because again, at that point, it was closer to Dark Knight Returns first coming out. So of course that they were going to like that was more fresh in the memory. And it was kind of darkifying Batman. Yeah, I enjoyed that one. But so then we also get like teases and allusions to like Jim Gordon's son, who would later grow up to be a serial killer. We see, I think we see Barbara as in being we see baby Barbara at one point.
We do see how Commissioner Gordon's having a double life.
Yeah. We'll talk about that. That's how you build a character. It's why it got adapted as the canon origin. So it sets up so many iconic aspects. Yeah, exactly. It introduces everything slowly. So speaking of Jim Gordon living a double life, I do like how this movie doesn't paint Gordon as like the perfect cop. It doesn't. He makes mistakes and he hurts people. It's the regular. It's like it doesn't because they could have easily made like Batman the imperfect dude and then Jim Gordon this perfect by the books cop. They don't. So I really liked how they do it. Not Baby Barbara. That was Baby. No, I know it was James Gordon, but I could have sworn later in the movie we saw like maybe Barbara, like someone being pregnant with Barbara. I could have sworn somewhere in there. I could have been wrong about that.
But still, it's like. It's still like James Gordon having like leading a double life. I'm just like, you dirty cop.
Well, not only that,
I'm just like, how can you do that to your wife?
Speaking of heat, Heat Man,
vengeance.
I am the knight. I am Batman.
Hell yeah,
Wrong,
you are.
wrong film. Wrong film.
It still counts. But so Teladia, let me ask you this real quick, and then I'll get to JJheat, because this was your pick.
Yeah.
And so what about this movie made you want to cover it for movie night?
Well, because we covered the Dark Knight Part 1 and Part 2 in the past, I felt like it's only fitting that because we didn't cover it last year or the year before for the Batman, it made sense to cover it now.
Yeah, we should have. Well, we really should have.
We should have, but we never did, and it would have been fitting. So I was just like, you know what? Because considering we're doing like Crisis was coming out and Batman was the main central point for that, I just felt like, you know what? We should cover Batman at this point. Cool. An animated film for Batman. So
JJheat, your general thoughts on Batman Year One, the movie?
Solid adaptation, 10 out of 10, right out of the page. Though there is a change of perspective compared to the movie, to the comic, regarding James Gordon. But other than that, solid adaptation and a solid film.
Isn't it kind of interesting, JJheat, about how all of the movies adapting the Miller books are like page to screen?
Most of them.
It's kind of funny how that works out.
It's like 1-to-1 from the comic into animation, which I find so cool. And funnily enough, when The Dark Knight Returns came out, Frank Miller's Batman Year One is connected to it in animation form.
Yeah, exactly. Because again, all of the books that Frank wrote for DC for Batman are like in one continuity, and then it only works best that you would put that in here as well. So then we get, and you notice the other thing I like about this, they're not dealing with super villains at all. There's no Joker until the end. There's no real like Two-Face or like Scarecrow. It's just corrupt cops and seedy criminals. That's it. That's honestly the perfect way to introduce Batman. Don't bring in like all these guys. Just have them fight criminals, and then that happens, because then you can hammer in that point that all those costume freaks like Firefly, Scarecrow, and the Joker are just responses to Batman.
Now, there are some in most versions, there are some pre-Batman, quote-unquote, supervillains, but they're so and far between, you barely see them get adapted.
Yeah, exactly. So I'm like, I like this a lot more. What were you going to say, Teladia?
I was going to say, the thing is with this film, I felt it definitely, like, because this came out in 2011, mind you. So at the time, I was like, wait, I've seen this before. And I was like, oh, it's Batman Begins, where I've seen this before. But the animation is far better than the film, I would say, adaptation for Batman Begins.
Yeah, and you notice this was during the time period when each animated film could have a different animation style, when they weren't going for one style, where they tried to like recreate like the style from the comics. Because remember, you had this. You also had like Superman, Batman, Apocalypse, Superman, Batman, Public Enemies. So they were trying to like adapt all of the. So they were trying to at least make it look like you actually took this and just adapted it, instead of just saying take the story of this, but like put the Tomorrowverse in there, which is my one complaint with like the Tomorrowverse Batman movie, Long Halloween, because I would have liked if they just did Tim Sale's art style instead of just the Tomorrowverse Archer style, but yeah. I still enjoyed it. All right, so Pika says that's because Batman started by going after. I know. It's just occasionally you see that, like, if there's all these supervillain characters. I mean, if like when Batman first shows up, you also have all these supervillains. So, like JJheat says, there have been stories where that happened. I'm just saying I like it better this way.
Indeed.
But yeah, go ahead, Teladia.
I was going to say, also a fun fact for you guys, that there was a skin for Batman Year One in Arkham City.
Oh, yes, there was. That was the one that... Is that the one that they kind of screwed up, and when you wear it, it's like straight white?
No. So the eyes are white. It's more comic accurate than movie accurate.
No, I mean, I know there's one skin. It may not even be the year one skin that when you wear it, it's kind of screwed up. At least in the remastered edition, where it's just
Oh yeah. In the remastered, yeah, but not in the original game. It was okay.
yeah, okay. I knew. I was like, wait a second here. I could have sworn that one's screwed up. But and yeah, so that kind of shows how like iconic the storyline is. And again, you could argue that like I think the two writers that I think had the biggest influence on Batman as we know him today are obviously if there were three creatives that I think had the most influence on Batman, Denny O'Neil, Neil Adams, and Frank Miller. Because if you notice, all of the subsequent Batman writers and creatives were inspired by those three dudes. They are the holy trinity of Batman.
Yes.
Needless to say, the Bronze Age definitely revitalized the character and the IP as what we know it now.
Yeah. By the way, JJheat, you know what's really funny? Bruce Timm plays a thug in this. Isn't that appropriate?
I don't see where that's just a regular glorified cameo. I don't really get the joke here.
No, it's a joke because it's Bruce Timm. I wonder if Bruce Timm wanted to do a scene where Jim Gordon's wife gives birth to Barbara and Batman goes, interesting.
No, stop. I see what you're going for, but
killing joke. I'm just saying, stop. Killing joke. But anyway,
too wordy, Jared. You got to get to the punchline.
I know. But so they deal with the corrupt cops, and it's basically just Batman and Jim Gordon teaming up, and it's really cool. And you know what? It's one of my favorite animated Batman movies because it handles the origin. Yeah, to Teladia's point and JJheat's point, it handles the origin in some ways better than the live action does because it takes time to slow everything down. I mean, even the Nolan movies, Batman Begins, the first villain, Scarecrow. If they had just made it Falcone, yes, it's pronounced Falcone, not Falcone, Falcone, I think it would have been like a better movie. I mean, the Batman kind of played with that, but you still had like the Riddler.
Yeah, but this is basically a glorified mob film just with a vigilante stuck in.
Yeah, that's why I said they kind of go with that. So that's why I appreciate that. So I'm like, okay, that works with there.
Batman Begins has a good balance because you do have between the realistic and the supernatural. I hate to cut you off, Jared. I just want to make this point. Yeah, but Batman Begins has a good balance to where you have, although Ra's is the main villain, he still has resources, and Scarecrow kind of plays the Hugo Strange role from Arkham City, for a better example. And he's just a secondary villain, but there's still that element of supernatural.
I'm waiting for a Batman villain or a Batman movie live action where the villain's Hugo Strange. I think that'd be really fun.
Yeah, but I'd probably rated R though, but it's possible they can pull it off.
Oh, no, wait. I got a fantastic villain that'd be great for a Batman movie. Are you ready? It's a villain that literally is like one of the best. That's one of the most dangerous villains of all time. You ready?
Bruce Timm.
Kite Man. I had to. Thank you. Hey, what's up, Tevia? How you doing? But I was making a joke. But yes, Bruce Timm is the villain. But so moving on. So let me ask you guys this: what are your all's favorite scenes from this movie?
Oh, for me personally, it has to be the bat swarming the cops. And Batman taking them out.
Speaking of Batman Begins, that is very Batman Begins right there.
Yeah, it was like Batman. It was in this like broken house type of thing, and I'm just like, and Batman was like taking each individual cop out one by one, and then he tries to save a cat, right? You know what scene I'm talking about?
Mm-hmm.
The one where he saves the cat.
Yeah, I know what you're talking about.
Yeah. And that's the scene I like the most because that scene just like, oh, Batman's just a bad, really cool person, like bang, 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 taking them out one by one and then causing the bat swarm and then rides a motorbike after that.
Yeah, the bat swarm out. Again, it reminded me of that scene in Batman Begins where he goes, what is that? Back up. I love that. That is just so cool. My favorite is probably, yeah, that scene too. Because I'm sorry, because here's the other thing. Here's what the Nolanverse added to this story is the whole saying theatricality and deception are powerful agents. And yeah, the cool thing about that is that imagine what that does for his legend. Imagine you're one of those cops that gets back to the station and goes, "Yeah, we had Batman cornered. Then a swarm of bats showed up." And Randy, I thought you were going to say Condiment King. That's another option too, because he is terrifying. Because when you notice, Batman's eyes are exposed, so he could just fire mustard in his eyes and debilitate Batman.
Fun fact: Condiment King's one of the few villains that could actually get on Batman's nerves because he stains his costume every interaction.
Yeah, I know. He's really an Alfred villain because of that. Personally, for me, James Gordon taking on the corrupt cops and Batman. Yeah, that was cool. Yeah, I definitely. I thought you were gonna say Rat. There's a Rat King.
Yes.
What were they smoking when they make these characters? Pika's favorite part is near the end, Bruce Wayne ends up totally inspiring a totally normal housewife who's not married to a spy and a stepmother to a psychic girl. Yeah, exactly. My other favorite scene of this is where Batman saves Jim Gordon's baby, and he says Bruce Wayne, and Jim Gordon sees him as Bruce Wayne, but then goes, I don't see well without my glasses. So he's like, no, you know what? You and I are cool. You saved my kid. You're here to help. And I'm like, yeah, I dig that. Because, he could have gotten like any promotion he wants if he turned in Batman, but he's like, no, I got you, dude.
Yeah. And
yeah, go ahead.
I think it might have inspired Arkham Origins. This film might have.
Yeah, a little bit. I definitely see the Arkham Origins-y, because in a way that's kind of what that storyline is doing. Because wait, JJheat, roughly when in Batman's career does Arkham Origins take place?
Yeah,
Arkham Origins is roughly within the first 2 to 3 years, I want to say. It's definitely not year one. It's definitely after the first couple of years.
Okay, well, you know what? Yeah, I'm sure that when they were making that movie, they had this on their shelf. Like, okay, you know what? Because it's not year one, but it's like a good. You can take some stuff from here and say, okay, so early Batman, because this is why when Matt Reeves was making the Batman, he listed this as one of his readings in addition to Long Halloween and such, because again, this is the story of an inexperienced Batman figuring out how to be the Batman that could punch Darkseid in the face.
Allegedly.
Or the Batman that can get shot by Omega beams and travel back in time and inspire a cult that would later come back and create an army of dark multiverse clones of himself.
Pretty sure Barbados just took advantage, but I get your point.
It's kind of my thing there. Yeah, exactly. But this story inspired. Yeah, at least with the Jim Gordon origin, at least with the Jim Gordon parts of Batman Arkham, this is clearly was the inspiration for that.
Pika says Arkham Origins had Brendan in it.
Yeah,
to destruction.
He was.
Yes.
And wasn't that from the Grant Morrison Batman run? It might have. But so overall, really dope movie. Now, let me ask you this. Where does this rank with the other Batman movies that we have discussed? Because personally, I still like Dark Knight Returns more because of what happens in that story. And you have Batman BVS. So there you go. How about you, Teladia?
It's probably top five thing. It probably outdoes Public Enemy and Apocalypse, in my opinion.
Really interesting.
Yeah, because Batman Year One was more closer to the Dark Knight than Dark Knight Returns than Public Enemy, and the fact is that this film told a generation of fans about Batman and how cool he was.
Yeah, that's true. I'll give you that. Randy says, I like how grounded this movie was. No Bat-God BS. Yeah, that's one of the things that I think really holds Batman as a character back, is the whole Bat-God thing. We're he could solve anything because he's Batman. And I'm like, no. All right, so JJheat, where does this align on your list of top DC movies? And if you're talking
JJheat?
JJheat, you there?
Can you hear me now?
Yeah, and now I can hear you. So where's the line on your list of DC movies?
Definitely top 5, if I'm being completely honest.
Sweet, yeah. Same for me. My top 5 DC movie animated movies. I'll do classics, so I don't have to talk about the modern ones. And non-DC AMU. Batman, Superman, Apocalypse, because I'm a Trinity fan, so it's nice seeing those ones reference. Dark Knight Returns, this, and probably. Okay, so I'm on 4. Probably Batman Gotham Knight, because it's kind of in the Nolan verse, kind of not, and then Suicide Squad. And by the way, by Suicide Squad, I mean Batman Return to Arkham. By the way, Andrew Medley. By the way, thank you again for another $10 super chat. I like James Gordon from Arkham Origin, as he was developed better than his year 1 version, as it takes him a while to get Batman's trust in the end of the game. Yeah, that's really cool, dude. I definitely enjoy that as well. So before we wrap up, now let me ask you this, Teladia. I've asked you where this aligns on your top 5 list, but what are your top 5 DC movie lists?
Dark Knight Returns.
Okay.
Part 1 and 2. Then Batman Year 1.
Okay.
Then after that is Public Enemy. Then Apocalypse. Batman,
okay.
Superman, Apocalypse.
You got one more.
And I would have to put Superman, All-Star Superman, number 5.
Okay, there you go. JJheat, how about you? And you can't say the New Direction verse.
I wasn't going to. But Dark Knight Returns, parts 1 and 2, Batman Under the Red Hood, Superman, Batman Apocalypse. Though honorable mention, I will use Public Enemies as an honorable mention.
Mm-hmm.
Where was I? Batman Year 1, number 4, and number 5, All-Star Superman.
There you go. Solid. Tevia's are surprising no one. The first one is Super Sons. And then Superman, Batman Apocalypse, Public Enemy, Justice League, Crisis on 2 Earths, and finally Gods and Monsters. Yeah, not bad. Not bad. Mask of the Phantasm. I didn't want to put that on there because that's the obvious choice. I kind of wanted to do ones that like no one would expect, or like, because if I say Mask of the Phantasm, that's automatically going on number 1. I can't, like, there's no wiggle room there. But anyway, so that's where I need to do a proper top 5 video. Yeah, I do. So in terms of, let's see, what else can we talk about with this movie? Really, hey, what's up, K-pop? How you doing? So the point that I want to bring up with this is that this proves that it's not too hard to actually adapt this stuff faithfully. Unfortunately, Hollywood doesn't know how to do this properly.
Because again, you wanted to give it the gravitas of a superhero movie akin to what Marvel was able to do with the MCU. Most early Batman stories are mob boss or corrupt cops.
Which those do well. I can't believe why they wouldn't just do a bunch of early Batman movies.
They're early Pulp Fiction, or at least Batman was very Pulp Fiction inspired. It's a trend thing. They have to cram at least one supervillain in it to make it, fit the genre. It could be Riddler, it could be Scarecrow, it could be Two-Face. I'd say Two-Face is the best balance out of all the street level villains, but hey, that's just my opinion.
What they could, I would say that like the release of The Batman and its success proves that you can have. I mean, even though it has the Riddler, but they really grounded him and made it so it's not like a puzzle box or anything like that. Yeah. Okay, Teladia, I'll see you later, dude.
All right,
I'll take over.
Yeah. But like even with like the classic X-Men, the animated series, they were adapting Dark Phoenix way better than Hollywood ever does. Like way better. Yeah.
I can confirm.
Way like legit, it's page 2 screen. And Randy says anime and manga do a better job of working over each other. JJheat, let me ask you this. So I've seen the Attack on Titan anime. I still haven't finished it. But how close is that to the actual manga?
Some would say the Attack on Titan anime is actually an improvement of the manga because, again, there's perfect synergy with anime and manga most of the time, or at the very least solid synergy, where one directly promotes the other. and it's the same story being told with a few slight differences or extra character development that could be in form of filler or transition episodes, but topic for a different stream. Make it a long story short, anime and manga have enough variety to where they can stay within their specific genre and always find an audience. American comics, the big two especially, always tries to either have its cake and eat it too, or try to please everyone, but ultimately please no one, especially the past couple of years.
Mm-hmm.
As for adaptations, it just depends. It ultimately just depends.
Yeah, it's like some have two versions of manga. One Punch has two. Well, that just seems confusing.
Yeah, one's the main version, the other's a relaunch, if I remember correctly.
Oh, jeez.
It's either a relaunch
There's
or
a multiverse even in manga. Is that what you're telling me?
Unfortunately, no. I don't think anime is that brazen. You can find a lot of wacky things in anime, but multiverse is not one of them. Too convoluted.
Yeah, it gets. This is really like. This reminds me of the anime CLD we did a while back, where Nick was explaining student teacher to me, and I was like, you could see in my head. One is done by the OG creator and his shoddy art style. Nice. Then he found an art team and redid it. Okay, I see. So it's kind of like an improvement on the classic one. I can kind of see where that goes and how that works. But so, which is the more anime version? Yeah. Does the same thing like apply to like Dragon Ball?
Dragon Ball by Akira Toriyama is pretty straightforward with some filler in Z. Now, there had been a remake called Dragon Ball Z Kai or Dragon Ball Kai, depending on your translation, where it's more streamlined with a few filler scenes sprinkled over, but not many. But there, again, the best Gintama, a very goofy spoof parody-based anime, highly recommended. But Gintama explains filler the best. It's basically a series of extra content or bonus content. That way it gives time for the manga to catch up and meet its deadlines and create enough of a gap to still have a genuine or a consistent anime experience and syndication.
It should be treated as extra content. The problem is treated in like mainstream as replacement content.
Now that's the biggest misconception. Now, Full Metal Alchemist is the worst example because that anime was relaunched from the ground up. So that's a terrible where filler was just buried in filler all over the place. And the original run of Bleach was in a similar situation. But let's not go there. That's a headache for anybody. But making a long story short, filler is mostly used to expand on current content while allow opportunities for side characters to get development. Transition episodes do feature in the manga or are referenced in the manga itself, but you don't see the full context, or that context is dragged out for development purposes.
I see. Every time we talk about manga, I learn so much.
The average anime fan, now it depends. Now a diehard fan can tell the difference between a transition episode and a filler episode like that, but most people can't tell the difference.
The question is, JJheat, can you tell the difference?
Oh yeah, easily.
I would love to quiz you, like have a bunch of filler and see if you can guess which one it is.
Yeah, but Attack on Titan's going to have more transition episodes than filler because it directly works side by side with the manga, again, due to synergy.
I will say, it's kind of funny when I was watching Attack on Titan and they show you like the people fighting the war and they can transform into Titans, like that hard, I think it was like season 3 transition to like that other plot line. I was like, what the hell is happening? Because they didn't give you any information about it. It's like all of a sudden we're like, okay, we're following these characters, but no, it's actually a prequel to what happened. So I'm like, what? It was good. Don't get me wrong, I enjoyed it, but I was like, what is going on?
Yeah, season 3, or at least what would be adapted to season 3, was during the events of mini art where there was a lot of back and forth and change in perspective. Because I believe season 3 was around the time where Eren has his fall from grace and turns into Magneto. I want to say it was around that time. It could have been set up earlier, but Eren was definitely an antagonist by season 3.
So he does become a bad guy. That's interesting. So you're saying he became the very thing he swore to destroy.
Again, I would make more of a Magneto comparison than Anakin Skywalker, but I won't spoil it for you.
Randy says, Jared, you can watch the Dragon Ball Super Broly movie. It's a standalone movie and explain the lore in a short amount of perfect time for beginners. I will check that out. You know what? That's a great idea. I thought the final season had Aaron as the villain.
No, it was set up in season 3. It was set up late season 2, early season 3. The payoff was in season 4.
Yeah, it just depends. That's why it's kind of funny. That's why I do kind of like. That's why I've been trying to get into anime and manga, because it's like you see all this stuff and like you see a lot of lessons the mainstream, the Western comic book industry could definitely learn from manga, but they keep learning the wrong lessons.
A shame.
Yeah, but beyond that, this isn't a manga thing. But we could start talking about anime movies for movie night. But anyway, in terms of like, we should watch Batman Ninja for movie night at one point and read about and watch the monkeys merge with the bats and form Batman. Hey, what's up, Master Sergeant? And thank you for the $10 super chat, $10 for Batman. I appreciate that, brother. Thank you.
What's up?
So, all in all, I really dug this movie, and it's very faithful to the source material. I like a lot. I like how you can definitely see a lot of what they took for like different Batman movies. They took a lot of it from this, and it's kind of interesting how like a lot of the even like experienced Batman stories that we get for like movies are taken from this, an origin story for Batman. So it's kind of cool how they do that.
It depends on the era, but yes, if you're looking for a solid origin for Batman, it's usually Batman Year One or Batman 0 Year.
Yeah, isn't this the one that is taken as also canon to as also the canon origin to the Dark Knight Returns Batman in addition to regular Batman?
Yes, because contrary to popular belief, Dark Knight Returns is an Elseworld story. It did save the IP from the campiness of the Adam West show in the Silver Age. But at the same time, it is still an Elseworld story. I don't know why people try to mainstream it as much as possible, but they do.
Well, the other thing that really annoys me, speaking of Dark Knight Returns, is when I see like younger comic book fans on Twitter start to say, I hate Dark Knight Returns, it ruins Batman. And I'm like, you realize it saved the IP, right?
I get it. It wasn't adapted the best by Snyder, but bad-mouthing Dark Knight Returns is just being a contrarian.
Yeah, they're all. I'm glad you mentioned Snyder, JJheat, because we also need to contractually reference Snyder once per stream, but also because that's why they do it, really, because they don't want to admit that anything Snyder does is good, so they will say anything that is linked to Snyder in any way is bad. Like, I got into arguments about people and if Snyder is racist for what he did with 300. And I'm like, that's the story. And they're like, that's not. I love how people were sharing like this video of like a historian debunking the 300 movie. And I'm like, it's adapting a comic book. It's not meant to be historically accurate.
A controversial director, easy clicks, easy clout. I get it. And I'm not even the biggest fan of what Snyder did with the DCEU, but I still have my opinion. I respect my co-host and just about everyone I work with. And I do see the potential, especially with Warner Brothers Discovery so buried in debt. Though, with that being said, bashing James Gunn bad-mouthing Snyder just because it's trendy doesn't solve anything. At best, you're being contrarian or being edgy and obnoxious at worst. Or troll. But at this point, it's just getting old. And I wouldn't be surprised if the whole Snyderverse to Netflix, even though I do support my co-host, wouldn't be surprised. Part of me would be surprised if it did happen because of what happened with Warner Media.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, some things you do not reconcile. Now, granted, Snyder got to finish his vision, and it was a cross-promotion by AT&T for the HBO Max or Max streaming service. He did them a favor. And that's because AT&T paid him to do it, not Emmerich and Warner Media.
Yeah, in fact, AT&T overrode Emmerich and said, no, you're releasing this.
Yeah, and Emmerich sold off the company out of spite the first chance he got.
I think he even shut down the. He didn't even sell off. He shut it down before the first chance he got, so we wouldn't have to continue the Snyderverse. And like, you wonder why WB got a lot of heat from the fans. No, I'm sorry, a lot of that stuff they deserved.
That is true.
It's astounding. But anyway, let's see. All in all, there's not that much I can talk about for year one. All it's a good movie. How do you? I know I should have had Teladia on this. I get the feeling he rated 10 out of 10. But how do you rate this movie?
I give it a 9 only because it does change its perspective slightly. James Gordon had a bit of a slightly different arc in the original comic. But other than that, that's just a mild gripe in the grand scheme of things.
Yeah. And now Jeff Johns, Batman or Volume 2 as another. Yeah, that's another one that's actually pretty decent. I had the first volume. I don't think I have 2 and 3. I could get those and review those. That'd be interesting. I have to see. I know I did enjoy that because it's like a Batman is using the grapple hook for the first time and he just trips on his cape. That's hilarious. It's kind of funny seeing Batman screw up. I don't know. But
you rarely ever see it, but it's a good laugh when it does.
Yeah. And all in all, pretty good. So, JJheat, where can one find you, and what have you got coming out on your stuff?
Well, you can find me at JJheat75 or JJheat Plays on YouTube. Recently, I did my What If Scion Was in the Decamu. That video was relatively successful. I appreciate the support. I'm now on the verge of 230, but my part 2 of my Gotham Knights TV review is in the works. And if y'all can give me the 300 before the end of the year, I will review both seasons of Velma.
Oh yeah, you're doing that, and you still have to finish Gotham Knights. So
again, I literally graduate next week. I have a lot more free time.
Congratulations!
Thank you.
So we'll do that. But as for me, I'm going to be on next show as he plays Force Unleashed. And then in terms of for what I'm doing, Britt and I are going to be discussing the DCEU Superman and Wonder Woman, how they were portrayed, how they could have adapted and put them together, obviously. For my commentary videos, I think I may do one talking about why I have concerns about the DCU under James Gunn. We'll see with that. I'll get that started and set up.
Assuming it ever gets off the ground.
Exactly, because I still think it's just going to be Superman, then they're going to call it. But, and in terms of, let's see. In terms of Under Two Capes, next week, we're going to be creating a Batfleck trilogy, meaning that we're going to take the plot lines that were established in BVS and Zack Snyder's Justice League and, like, thread them together into essentially a side universe, kind of. In other words, I would do like, how would what's Nightwing doing in the Snyderverse? What's Jason Todd doing? Emperor Luffy. I avoid Velma like the plague, not touching that garbage. Yeah, exactly. No hate watching. Happy Star Wars Day. Yeah, absolutely. Happy Star Wars Day.
May the 4th be with you. Also, stay tuned for my Decamu retrospective. That will be coming out in the next couple of days. As for my SwolTour content, I might end up just deleting a lot of my playlists and just starting a fresh playthrough. I haven't decided yet, but y'all will soon find out in the meantime.
Yeah. And one more thing I want to promote is that I am practically all set up for Assassin's Creed Odyssey. I'm going to share out my Wonder Woman character right here on the screen. So I basically got all the Amazon armor. I just need the tiara, but which I'm close to. So that's my character in Assassin's Creed Odyssey. So what I'll do is when we complete Batman Arkham Knight, the main story, I'll plug this in. We'll do New Game Plus. That way I have all my gear, and then I can actually role play as Wonder Woman and say I am playing the Wonder Woman game early. So there you go. SEO, baby, SEO. So in terms of content, stay heroic, everyone. And thanks to everyone. Also, yeah, happy Free Comic Book Day. I got some great stuff. So stay heroic, everyone. Remember, Lois Lane is Lois Lane. She belongs to General Zod, Mazois, and Max Sabat for life. See you later.